Many years ago, I had this published in a book, this project with the little flowers that you can decorate onto frameworks. And they're so versatile because you can wire them onto bracelets and rings and earrings. And I had a request from Beryl Park Pearson for how to create this sort of earring with these little seed beaded flowers. So here we go. Here's my tools. In fact, you don't need two cutters, but you need a pair of cutters. Some chain nose pliers. I'm going to make my framework in 1.25 aluminium wire, but really any wire frame will do. So there are various ways to make this sort of teardrop frame, and I'm going to show you one of them. And this is how I would make it for a pendant. So you form it around something cylindrical to create that shape with the two ends coming together at the top. So you've got that sort of teardrop shape. And you decide where you're going to cross them over to create the top of the pear drop. Now, this is one way of doing it. You can just curl the ends with your round nose pliers into little circles on each side, and then just sort of bring them where you want them to sit. You can hammer the rest of the frame because that will work harden and sort of toughen up the wires. And once that's done, you can go to the very, very top, those little circles, and just twist them, turn them, just little movements around 90 degrees so that they face each other, the two circles face each other. And that means all you have to do at the end is put a jump ring through the two to suspend it. So if it's distorted while you've been creating those top circles, just readjust back onto the mandrel. So now that you have a frame, I mean, if you're making earrings, obviously do that twice. Now you're going to make the flowers. So you can use 0.4 millimeter or 0.3. Basically, any fine binding wire will do because we're using tiny little beads. So I'm cutting, about a foot, 10 inches, because I'm going to be making a few flowers on my frame. And then you start picking up the seed beads that you're going to use, or any of the beads. I mean, it depends really what size flowers you want to make, and that is dependent on the size of the beads that you are going to create the petal frame, from. So here I've put a few of those little seed beads. I've done them alternate colours, but you can do them all the same. And I'm going to the centre of my wire, and I'm just crossing it over so to check that my centre bead will fit within that framework, within the centre of that framework. Once I know that does fit, and I've got the right amount of beads, I know that all the other little flowers can be exactly the same. So get your wires. I tend to take the two ends and try and get them to meet. So I'm really trying to get the centre of that long wire. And then post one of the ends through the last bead on one of the sides. So just post it through and then pull both ends together to create that circle. So when you tug it together, it'll form into a little beaded circle. And then with that wire, bring it across the centre, thread on your centrepiece bead that's going to go as the centre of the flower. And then where the wire sits on the opposite side, just put it through the wire circle, the beaded circle, just once to secure it in place. And that way you will end up with a wire coming out on each side of the beaded circle. And that is how you make these little flowers. So you'd hold that. I always start at the center. when I'm creating something, just to get the symmetry. And then I'm going to wrap that stem of wire, that projecting wire. It's really up to you how many times you wrap it, but you want a bit of a space between each of the flowers so that they stand out, so they're not too close together. I mean, obviously you could wire on another colour bead in between each of the flowers, or you could put little leaf shapes with seed beads, all sorts of things. But I'm going to show you because Beryl did ask me, how did I make those earrings? So I want to show her the pattern that I did use and the technique. So I'm wiring it just to create a gap and doing the same on each side of that frame. And then I'm ready to create the next 2 flowers. So same thing again. Now you know how many beads are going to encircle the center bead. So it's always the first one that's the hardest because you're trying to work out how many beads do you need. So once you've got one established, then it's just repetitive. So thread them all on. And now to make the next one, you want to bring it around and you want to hold the bead that's closest to the frame. You want to hold it onto the frame. Just put your thumb over it. Just hold it down there so that you don't create a gap between the binding on the frame and the next flower. And then just gently tug until it's nice and tight and you've created another circular shape for the beads. Then bring the wire across, drop the center bead into the center of that circle of beads, and then take the end of the wire around the framework. So you're going inside the circle of beads just to secure it in there. And you have to really work quite slowly because you've got very fine wire. You don't want to snag it. You don't want to break it. You don't want to, put little glitches and sort of twists and turns and knots in it. So there's your second flower, and then you carry on binding and binding around the hammered framework. And of course you can follow the complete contour with flowers, and you could see how nice this would be on a bangle wire, or you could do this on a ring. It works for so many things. So now I'm just going to do my last and third flower on the opposite side in exactly the same way, dropping the bead in the middle and then securing it on the opposite side. So all I would say is just practice this. Practice maybe with slightly bigger beads. And once you've got the hang of it, you'll see you can use really any beads for this. But the small seed beads really work well because they're so sort of like cute, aren't they? These little sort of flower that you can put all over your jewellery just to decorate and embellish. So there's the pattern that I was showing you. You can see how, and if you ran out of wire, you could just cut more of the 0.4 and carry on binding and creating more flowers. I'm just going to finish off by putting a bead suspended from the center, and so I've already put a headbin on one side and a link on the other, and I'm just bringing my jump ring through one of the sides of the top of the frame, and then it's going to continue through to the other side to suspend it from the center of that teardrop framework. And this is really, you can make earrings like this or you can make pendants like this. And there you have it. You've got another link so that you can thread or post either ribbon or chain or whatever you're going to suspend it from. So that's the idea. This one, I actually did a slightly different framework, and you can see I also wired the flower into the framework. So I'll show you this framework. This one is just, you cross it over at the top. You have one shorter end that is going to become a hook. You post the projecting end into that little hook, and then you squeeze and secure, sort of squish it down to trap the end in there. You do that. This is for earrings. You do that on both sides, and then all you'll need to do once that's secure in there is just straighten the stem so that it projects centrally from your teardrop frame, and then you can make links at the top for the earrings. And something like this you could hammer. You see I've hammered the frames. You can make your little beaded flowers. If they are just too small to fit in your frames, you just add a few more seed beads onto the sides of the flowers so that you don't see the wire. And then you can wire those within the framework. So they're not dangling, but they're held in place. So it's just showing you different ways of using these flowers to decorate your jewellery pieces in whichever way you would like to make them. So there I'm just binding it on again, and then I'm going to squish that down, cut off the excess, make sure the excess wire is not sitting past the frame, because otherwise it'll scratch. So always cut it so that it's sitting on the frame. Just finish off on the other side. And again, squash that down, make sure it's nice and neat. And then all that's left to do is possibly put a top bead right at the tip, create the link at the very, very top, and then get yourself an ear wire, either a fish hook or a ball post, whatever suits you best, and then they're ready to wear. So that's very simple, isn't it? And you could also suspend something from that, or you could have made them the other way around so that the drop is going in the opposite direction. So I hope this has given you lots of inspiration, and you will have fun making your own beautiful little flower projects. Thank you for watching, and do subscribe to my channel to help it grow. Many, many thanks.